Let's now invite Julian Karaguesian, former special advisor at the Ministry of Finance. Julian, good evening and thank you for your time. Great to see you again.
Great to see you, Akshay.
So do you think Canada could have waited a tad bit on this first payment set for Monday on digital tax, especially when both the Prime Minister and the President actually set 30 days of negotiations at the G7 summit?
I do think that, there are different means that we could have delayed the implementation. The Prime Minister has wide powers to do these things, as does the Finance Minister. I think this may also have been a negotiating tactic on the part of Prime Minister Carney. And there's also a separate track dealing with digital services taxation at the OECD in Paris. So we could have delayed this and we could have pursued the international negotiations. So it leads me to think that this was obviously a tactic by Prime Minister Carney, putting a card on the table. Because, as President Trump said, he exaggerated, but he said they have more cards than we do. But we have some.
We have some, okay. But how much do you think Canada would have gained in the first place with this digital tax? I ask you this, can we sort of forego this in the larger scheme of things and where this trade war exists?
I do think we can forego it in the context of the larger trade war, given that we export, 75 to 80% of our exports go to the United States, and exports are 1/3 of our economy. In the grand scheme of things, the tax is really a pittance. It's not much at all. But the tax is part of our domestic policy, and every sovereign nation has a right to pursue domestic policies. This has been conflated by some as a tariff, but it's actually a domestic tax policy. But again, to answer your question, Akshay, this is definitely expendable in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, and let's now discuss those cards, because we've had so many conversations, Julian, about the size of our economy versus the size of the American economy and who we are up against, who we are fighting against. So what are those cards that we have that are close to our chest at the moment?
The cards that we have, we don't want to play them in the first instance, but if we're backed into a corner, we are a major energy producer. We have huge reserves of oil and gas. We're a natural resource superpower. If we're backed into a corner, we can use those to our advantage. We can sell them into other markets. It will be very difficult in the short term, but in the medium and long term, the primary card we have is to build out our trading relationships that already exist with countries like India and China and the rest of East and South Asia, where 5 out of every 8 people in the world live. And China and India alone are going to account for about 1/3 of global growth, according to the IMF, over the next couple of years. We could build out our trading relationships with these countries. That's a medium and long-term card. Mm-hmm. In the immediate and short term, we're a natural resource superpower. And if we had to, we could withhold some of these things, including uranium, critical minerals. So we do have that card. We also have the card of about $150 billion in total federal and provincial procurement spending. And if we're forced to, we could have 100% or close to 100% as possible by Canadian provisions for government spending.
All right, let's see how this all plays out, because the president, as we know, has set yet another timeline of 7 days. So who knows what's going to happen in these 7 days. Julian Karaguesian, former special advisor at the Ministry of Finance. I appreciate your time, Julian. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Akshay.